Sarah Brown hit the brakes hard, her delivery scooter skidding to a stop in the narrow alley. Something was wrong. The air smelled like copper and fear, and in the dim glow of her headlight, she saw him, a man slumped against the wall, two babies pressed against his chest, blood spreading dark and wet across his shirt. His eyes were open, sharp, calculating even as life drained out of him. He looked at her like he'd been waiting. She should have driven away. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, to pretend she never saw this, to let Seoul's shadow swallow whatever nightmare was unfolding here. But the babies weren't crying. That silence was worse than any scream. Sarah killed the engine and stumbled off the scooter, her knees hitting the cold pavement before her brain caught up with her body. Have you ever made a choice in 3 seconds that destroyed your entire life? Drop a comment below and tell me what you'd do if you found a dying stranger holding 2 babies in an alley at midnight. And if you're already hooked, smash that like button and subscribe because this story is about to get dark. Real dark. The man's breathing was shallow, ragged, but his gaze never left her face. Sarah's hand shook as she reached for her phone, but before she could dial, his hand shot out and gripped her wrist. His strength was terrifying for someone who should already be dead. No police, he rasped in Korean, his accent smooth despite the pain. No hospital. You're bleeding out, Sarah said, her Korean rough but functional after 2 years teaching English in Seoul. You need help. They will kill you, he said, and the certainty in his voice made her blood run cold. They will kill the children first. Make me watch. Then you. Sarah tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. With his other hand, he pressed something into her palm. A phone. The screen was smeared with blood, but she could see messages in Korean, maps, numbers she didn't recognize. Take them, he said, his voice starting to fray at the edges. Run. Do not stop. Do not trust anyone. I don't even know you, Sarah said, panic rising in her throat. I'm just a delivery driver. I teach English to kids. I don't. They know your face now, he interrupted, and something in the way he said it made her look down at her hands. Blood. His blood was on her palms, smeared across the baby's blankets, staining the front of her jacket. Evidence. A signature she never agreed to write. Who are you? She whispered. Irrelevant, he said. Then headlights swept across the mouth of the alley. Multiple vehicles. Engines too quiet to be normal cars. Doors opening with synchronized precision. Sarah didn't think. She grabbed the babies, both of them, their small bodies warm and terrifyingly fragile, and ran. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Shouts in Korean. The man's voice, weaker now but still defiant, saying something she couldn't make out over the thunder of her own heartbeat. Then a gunshot. Then silence. Sarah ran harder, clutching the twins against her chest, their weight somehow both heavy and weightless as adrenaline turned her body into something mechanical. She'd never been fast, never been athletic, but fear had a way of rewriting the rules. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. The alley spat her out onto a side street, and she kept running, ducking between parked cars, cutting through a closed market, her mind racing faster than her feet. She didn't know Seoul well enough for this. She'd spent 2 years here teaching English at a private academy, living in a tiny apartment in Itaewon, sending money home to Detroit where her mother's medical bills were piling up faster than Sarah could count. She took the delivery job 6 months ago when the academy cut her hours. Night shifts paid better. Fewer questions. Fewer people who looked at her like she didn't belong. Now she wished she'd never touched that app. Never taken the shortcut through Yongsan. Never stopped. One of the babies started to cry, a thin, wavering sound that cut through the night like a siren. Sarah ducked into the entrance of a closed convenience store, pressing herself against the glass, trying to shush the child while her heart tried to break through her ribs. The other baby stirred, and she realized with a jolt of terror that she didn't even know if they were boys or girls. Didn't know their names. Didn't know anything except that someone wanted them dead badly enough to shoot a man in an alley and hunt down a random delivery driver. She looked at the phone he'd given her. The screen had gone dark, but when she swiped it open, no password, which seemed insane, she saw her own face staring back at her. A photo. Her ID photo from her visa application. And next to it, her name. Her address. Her work schedule. Her route from tonight. Sarah's stomach lurched. This wasn't random. None of this was random. The babies were quiet now, watching her with dark, solemn eyes that seemed far too aware for infants. She guessed they were maybe 8 or 9 months old. Twins, clearly, same round faces, same delicate features, dressed in matching blue onesies that were now smudged with their father's blood. Their father. The man in the alley. The man who was probably dead now. Who was he? And why did he have her information in his phone? Sarah's hands were still shaking as she scrolled through the phone, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Messages in Korean. Some in English. References to shipments, territories, names she didn't recognize. And then, buried in the Notes app, a single line in English. Sarah Brown. Plan B. Plan B for what? Footsteps echoed from somewhere close. Men's voices, calm and methodical, speaking Korean too fast for her to follow. Sarah shoved the phone into her jacket pocket and ran again. Sarah's apartment was 15 minutes away by scooter. On foot, carrying 2 babies through back alleys while trying not to be seen, it took 40 minutes that felt like 40 hours. Every shadow was a threat. Every engine sound made her flinch. By the time she reached the narrow stairwell leading up to her third-floor unit, her arms were numb and her shirt was soaked with sweat despite the October chill. She fumbled with her keys, nearly dropping them twice before finally getting the door open. Inside, she locked every lock, the handle, the deadbolt, the chain, then stood there breathing hard, the babies still clutched against her chest. They were surprisingly calm, watching her with those unsettling dark eyes like they understood the gravity of the situation better than she did. Sarah set them down carefully on her worn couch, her entire body shaking now that the adrenaline was starting to fade. The apartment was tiny, one room that served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen, with a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Posters from home covered the walls, Detroit skyline, Motown Museum, a photo of her and her mother from before the diagnosis. Everything she owned could fit in 2 suitcases. She'd always told herself it was temporary. Just until she saved enough. Just until Mom got better. Now she looked at the 2 babies on her couch and wondered if she'd ever see any of it again. One of them started crying, really crying this time, not the thin whimper from before but a full-bodied wail that filled the small space. The other one joined in immediately, and Sarah felt panic rising in her throat because she didn't know anything about babies. She was 26 years old, single, barely keeping herself alive in a foreign country. She couldn't do this. But she was doing it. She had to. Sarah grabbed a blanket and spread it on the floor, laying the babies down side by side. They stopped crying almost immediately, seeming content just to be somewhere soft and warm. She noticed for the first time that one had a tiny mole near the left ear. That would help her tell them apart, at least. Her phone buzzed. Her actual phone, not the blood-smeared one from the alley. Sarah grabbed it, hoping for something normal, a message from her roommate, a notification from the delivery app, anything to remind her that reality still existed. Instead, she saw 17 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. No voicemails. Just calls, each one placed exactly 3 minutes apart. As she stared at the screen, it buzzed again. The same number. Sarah answered without thinking. Hello? Silence. Not empty silence, but the kind where someone was definitely there, listening, waiting. Who is this? Sarah demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. You have something that belongs to me. The voice was male, speaking English with a Korean accent. Calm. Almost polite. The kind of calm that made her skin crawl. I don't know what you're talking about. The children, Miss Brown. Jae-ho Park's children. You took them from the alley. Sarah's blood turned to ice. They knew her name. They knew what she'd done. How did they know? Unless. She looked at her phone, really looked at it, and noticed the tiny red dot in the corner of the screen. An app she didn't recognize, running in the background. They weren't just calling her. They were tracking her. I want you to listen very carefully, the man continued. You are not equipped for this situation. You are a foreign teacher with an expired visa and outstanding debts. You are alone in a country where you do not speak the language well enough to ask for help. Jae-ho Park is dead. The children are orphans. There is no reason for you to die protecting them. What do you want? Sarah whispered. Your address. Or I can simply come to you. The choice is yours, but one option allows you to live. Sarah ended the call and threw the phone across the room like it was a grenade. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracking but still glowing. Still tracking. Still connecting her to people who wanted these babies dead. She grabbed the phone from the alley, Jae-ho's phone, and scrolled frantically through the contacts. There had to be someone. Someone he trusted. Someone who could help. But every name was in Korean, and she didn't recognize any of them. The messages were encrypted, showing only timestamps and fragments of text. The map showed locations all over Seoul, marked with symbols she couldn't decode. Then she found it. A contact listed simply as broker. And under it, a message in English from 3 days ago, Sarah Brown confirmed. Extraction ready if primary fails. Extraction. Primary. The words swam in her vision. She wasn't plan B. She was always part of the plan. Jae-ho Park had set this up. He'd known he might die. He'd known she would find him. And somehow, impossibly, he'd trusted her with his children's lives. But why? What did a Korean gangster know about a broke English teacher from Detroit? The babies started fussing again, and Sarah realized with a start that they were probably hungry. Maybe needed changing. Definitely needed things she didn't have. She'd never even babysat. Her younger cousins were all older than her. She had no formula, no diapers, no idea what she was doing. Sarah opened her laptop and searched for the nearest 24-hour convenience store. There was one 6 blocks away. She could run there, grab supplies, be back in 20 minutes. But that meant leaving the babies alone. That meant going back outside where people with guns were looking for her. She looked at the twins. They looked back, solemn and patient and so small. A knock at the door made her jump so hard she nearly screamed. Sarah? A female voice, speaking English with an American accent. Sarah, I know you're in there. I'm here to help. Sarah grabbed the heaviest thing she could reach, a cast iron skillet she'd bought at a market and never used, and approached the door. Who are you? My name is Jessica Chen. I work for the U.S. Embassy. We received a distress signal from your phone about 40 minutes ago. Sarah pressed her eye to the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, Asian American, maybe 30, wearing jeans and a leather jacket, holding up an ID badge. It looked official. It looked real. But Jae-ho's voice echoed in her head, do not trust anyone. I didn't send a distress signal, Sarah said through the door. I know. Someone else did. Someone who wanted us to find you before the wrong people did. Jessica's voice was calm, measured, like she was used to talking to terrified people through locked doors. Sarah, I need you to listen very carefully. The men looking for you aren't just gangsters. They're part of the Jade Serpent organization. They control half the illegal trade in Seoul. And right now, they're tracking your phone. I know, Sarah said. I already figured that out. Then you know you have maybe 10 minutes before they breach this building. So you can let me in, or you can wait for them. Your choice. Sarah's hands were slick with sweat on the skillet handle. Every instinct told her not to open that door. But every instinct had also told her to leave the babies in the alley, and she hadn't done that either. Sometimes you just had to make a bad choice and pray it wasn't the worst one. She unlocked the door. Jessica Chen stepped inside and immediately locked it behind her, her eyes sweeping the apartment with professional efficiency. She saw the babies on the couch and something flickered across her face, recognition, maybe, or concern. You actually took them. I wasn't sure you would. You knew about this? Sarah demanded, raising the skillet slightly. You knew what was going to happen? Not exactly. We knew Jae-ho Park was in danger. We knew he had contingency plans. We didn't know he'd chosen you as one of them. Jessica moved closer to the babies, crouching down to examine them without touching. They look healthy. That's good. Did he say anything before he died? Is he dead? Jessica's expression shifted. You don't know? I ran. I heard a gunshot. I assumed. Jae-ho Park is many things, but easy to kill isn't one of them. Jessica pulled out her own phone, scrolling quickly through something. Last report has him in surgery at a private clinic in Gangnam. Critical but stable. Which means this situation just got a lot more complicated. Sarah's legs suddenly felt weak. She sat down hard on the floor, the skillet clattering beside her. He's alive? For now. But the men who shot him are going to try again, and they'll use those babies as leverage if they can find them. Which brings us to the immediate problem. Jessica pointed at Sarah's cracked phone, still glowing on the floor. That needs to be destroyed. Not just turned off. Completely destroyed. Already planning on it. Good. Second problem, you can't stay here. They know this address. They probably knew it before tonight. Jessica stood up, moving to the window and peering carefully through the blinds. We need to move. Now. Move where? I don't have anywhere to go. I barely know anyone in Seoul. That's actually what makes you perfect, Jessica said, still watching the street below. You're not connected to Park's organization. You're not connected to his enemies. You're a random variable no one planned for. That's your advantage. I don't feel very advantageous, Sarah muttered. She looked at the babies, who were starting to fuss again. They need food. Diapers. I don't have anything. Jessica finally turned from the window. There's a safe house in Hongdae. 4 and 1/4, lots of foreigners, easier to blend in. We'll get you supplies on the way. She paused, studying Sarah with sharp eyes. But I need you to understand something. The moment you walk out that door with those children, you're making a choice. You're stepping into something that doesn't let you step back out. Jae-ho Park is the ghost king of Seoul. His enemies are powerful, ruthless, and patient. And his allies aren't much better. Why did he choose me? Sarah asked, the question that had been burning in her mind since she saw her photo on his phone. I'm nobody. I'm just a broke teacher trying to survive. I don't know, Jessica admitted. But Park doesn't do anything without a reason. Maybe it's because you're nobody. Maybe it's because you're exactly the kind of person who would stop in an alley for a dying man and his children. Maybe, she stopped, cocking her head toward the door. Footsteps in the stairwell. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Window, Jessica said quietly. Now. We're 3 floors up. Fire escape. It's old but functional. Jessica was already scooping up one of the babies with practiced ease. Grab the other one. Leave everything else. Sarah's hand shook as she picked up the second baby, feeling its warm weight settle against her chest. The baby with the mole near its ear, she decided to call this one Mark in her head, just to keep them straight. The other could be Luke. Biblical names. Her mother would approve, if Sarah ever got to tell her any of this. The footsteps were at her floor now. Sarah heard the elevator ding, heard voices speaking rapid Korean, heard someone testing door handles. Jessica already had the window open, cold October air rushing in. The fire escape was a rust-streaked metal ladder that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Can you climb with one hand? I guess I'm about to find out, Sarah said. She went first, Jessica passing Mark through the window to her. Sarah held the baby against her chest with her left arm and gripped the ladder with her right hand, her feet finding purchase on rungs that creaked ominously under her weight. Below, the alley was dark and empty. Above, she heard her apartment door slam open, heard men shouting, heard furniture being overturned. Sarah climbed down as fast as she dared, every muscle in her body screaming, Mark pressed so tight against her chest she could feel his heartbeat through her jacket. Or maybe that was her own heart, hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Jessica followed close behind with Luke, moving with the kind of fluid confidence that came from doing this before. They hit the alley floor just as a head appeared in the window above. A man's voice shouted something in Korean, and suddenly the night exploded with sound, men pouring down the fire escape, boots clanging on metal, someone yelling coordinates into a radio. Run, Jessica said, and they ran. This time was different from the panicked flight through the alleys earlier. Jessica knew where she was going, cutting through side streets and parking garages with the precision of someone who'd mapped every escape route in this neighborhood. Sarah just tried to keep up, her lungs burning, her arm aching from holding Mark, her mind spinning with too many questions and not enough answers. They emerged onto a busier street, late-night Seoul, neon signs, and convenience stores and people who didn't even glance at 2 women running with babies because this was a city that minded its own business. Jessica pulled Sarah into a narrow restaurant, past tables of startled customers eating late-night stew, through the kitchen where a cook shouted at them in Korean, and out a back door into another alley. A black sedan was waiting, engine running. Jessica opened the back door and practically shoved Sarah inside. Get down. Stay down. Sarah crouched in the footwell, still clutching Mark, as Jessica slid in beside her with Luke and the car peeled away from the curb. The driver was another woman, older, Korean, who said something sharp in Korean that made Jessica respond in the same language. They were arguing. Sarah caught her own name in the exchange, and Jae-ho Park's name, and something that sounded like unauthorized extraction. What's happening? Sarah asked. Who are you people really? Jessica's expression was tight. Right now? We're the only thing standing between you and a bullet. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting until we're somewhere safe. Jessica glanced at the driver, then back at Sarah. My colleague here thinks we should take you straight to the embassy. Hand you and the children over to proper authorities. File paperwork. Start an international incident. And you don't? I think if Jae-ho Park wanted embassy involvement, he would have called the embassy himself. He gave you his phone for a reason. He had your information for a reason. Until we know what that reason is, we're improvising. The car turned sharply, throwing Sarah against the seat. Mark started crying, a piercing wail that filled the small space. Luke immediately joined in, and suddenly the sedan was full of the sound of two terrified babies who had been passed between strangers too many times in one night. They're hungry, Sarah said helplessly. I don't know what to do. Jessica pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. The safe house has supplies. Formula, diapers, everything we need. 15 minutes. Who set up this safe house? The embassy? Jessica didn't answer, which was answer enough. They drove through neighborhoods Sarah had never seen, away from the foreigner districts she knew, deeper into residential areas where apartment buildings rose like concrete cliffs on either side. The driver kept checking the mirrors, taking random turns, clearly following some kind of protocol to lose any tail. Sarah held Mark and tried to shush him, but what did she know about comforting babies? She could barely comfort herself. Why did you help me? Sarah asked over the crying. If this isn't official embassy business, why are you here? Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Because 3 years ago, Jae-ho Park gave me information that saved the lives of 6 American nationals who were being held by a rival organization. He didn't ask for anything in return. Didn't want recognition. Just did it because it was the right thing to do, even though it cost him. So when I got a ping that he was in trouble and you were involved, I figured I owed him at least this much. You're saying the Korean Mafia boss is one of the good guys? I'm saying the world isn't that simple. Park controls territory, yes. He runs illegal operations, yes. But he also keeps worse people in check. He has rules. Lines he won't cross. And one of those lines is children. He protects children, Sarah. His own and everyone else's. Jessica looked down at Luke, who had finally quieted in her arms. These babies? They're not just his children. They're his everything. The only thing he loves more than power. Which is why his enemies want them dead. The car pulled into an underground parking garage, spiraling down several levels before stopping in a dimly lit corner. The driver got out first, scanning the area with her hand inside her jacket. Then she nodded, and Jessica gestured for Sarah to follow. They took an elevator up to the 8th floor, walked down a hallway that smelled like kimchi and floor cleaner, and stopped at a door that looked like every other door in the building. Jessica knocked 3 times, paused, knocked twice more. The door opened immediately. The man inside was young, maybe 25, with glasses and a nervous expression. He said something in Korean that sounded like a question. Jessica answered briefly, and his eyes went wide when he saw the babies. English, Jessica said firmly. For Sarah's benefit. Right, yes, sorry. The young man's English was excellent, American accented. I'm David Kim. Well, I guess you could call me a consultant. I work with Ms. Chen sometimes. He stepped back to let them in. Is it true? Are these really Park's children? Yes, Jessica said. And we need to keep them alive until we figure out what he wants us to do with them. The apartment was small but well-stocked, exactly like Jessica had described. Sarah saw formula stacked on the kitchen counter, boxes of diapers in various sizes, even a portable crib set up in the corner. Someone had prepared for this, which meant this wasn't improvised at all. Jessica had been expecting something like this to happen. How long have you been planning this? Sarah demanded, setting Mark down carefully on the couch. Her arms were shaking from exhaustion. We didn't plan this specific scenario, David said, moving to the kitchen and starting to prepare bottles with practiced efficiency. But we've had contingencies in place for months. Park has enemies who've been making moves. We knew something was coming. We just didn't know when or how. Jessica was already checking her phone, scrolling through messages with a deepening frown. The clinic where they took Park is under guard. His people and the Jade Serpent both have men positioned outside. It's a standoff. What does that mean for us? Sarah asked. It means we have time. Not much, but some. They're too focused on Park to mount a full search for you yet. Once they confirm he's going to survive, they'll shift priorities. Jessica looked up, her expression grave. Sarah, I need you to understand something. If Park dies, those babies become a succession crisis. Every lieutenant in his organization will either want to protect them or eliminate them depending on their ambitions. And the Jade Serpent will definitely want them dead to destabilize Park's entire operation. And if he lives? Then we give them back to him, and you go back to your life. Mostly. Mostly? Jessica's silence was telling. David brought over 2 bottles, handing one to Sarah. Have you ever fed a baby before? No. It's easy. Just support the head, tilt the bottle, don't let them drink too fast. He demonstrated with Luke, who immediately latched onto the bottle and started drinking with desperate enthusiasm. They're probably starving, poor things. Sarah tried to mimic his movements with Mark, feeling clumsy and terrified she'd do it wrong. But Mark seemed to know what to do better than she did, grabbing onto the bottle with tiny hands and drinking with the same desperate hunger as his brother. Sarah felt something twist in her chest watching him, something that felt dangerously close to attachment. Don't, Jessica said quietly, as if reading her mind. Don't let yourself care about them more than necessary. This isn't permanent. How can I not care? I'm literally keeping them alive. By tomorrow, they won't remember you existed. That's how babies work. But you'll remember them. And that's the part that destroys you. Sarah looked at Jessica and saw something in her expression, old pain, carefully buried. You've done this before. Different situation. Same lesson. Jessica turned away, checking the window blinds, all business again. David, status on Park? David was typing on a laptop, multiple windows open showing what looked like security feeds and encrypted chat logs. Still in surgery. His second-in-command, Minjun Choi, is there with about 20 men. The Jade Serpent has 30 outside. No shooting yet, but it's tense. What about the traitor? Sarah's head snapped up. Traitor? Someone in Park's organization gave the Jade Serpent his location tonight, Jessica explained. Someone close enough to know his schedule, his route, his security protocols. That's how they ambushed him. That's how they knew about his contingency with you. If they knew about me, why didn't they just kill me in the alley? Because Park is smart. He gave you the children and his phone, which means he gave you leverage. Kill you, and that leverage disappears into the city. Better to track you, follow you, see where you lead them. Maybe flush out Park's other contingencies in the process. Jessica's expression was grim. Except we intercepted you first, which is going to make them very nervous. So what do we do now? We wait, David said. Wait for Park to get out of surgery. Wait for him to tell us what he wants. And pray the Jade Serpent doesn't find us first. The next 3 hours felt like 3 years. Sarah fed the babies, changed their diapers with David's awkward instruction, and tried not to think about how natural it was starting to feel. Mark and Luke, she'd committed to those names now, even though she knew they probably had real names she'd never learn. They were good babies, all things considered. Quiet when they were fed. Alert and curious when they were awake. Mark had that mole by his ear. Luke had a cowlick that made his hair stick up on one side. She was doing exactly what Jessica warned her not to do. She was caring. Around 4 in the morning, Jessica's phone buzzed. She answered immediately, listened for a long moment, then said, understood, and hung up. Park's out of surgery, she announced. Critical but stable. He's conscious. Did he say anything? David asked. Just one thing. Jessica looked directly at Sarah. He wants to talk to you. Sarah's stomach dropped. Me? Why me? Because you're the one holding his children. Because you're the one he chose. Because apparently, whatever plan he set in motion tonight, you're at the center of it. Jessica grabbed her jacket. David stays here with the babies. You and I are going to the clinic. Is that safe? Absolutely not. But when has anything tonight been safe? Jessica checked her gun, Sarah hadn't even realized she was carrying one, and moved toward the door. You want answers? Park is the only one who has them. So we go ask. Sarah looked at Mark and Luke, sleeping peacefully in the portable crib. She thought about walking away, leaving them with David, disappearing into Seoul's crowds and pretending none of this ever happened. But she'd been lying to herself for hours. She was already too deep. She'd been too deep the moment she knelt in that alley. The clinic was in Gangnam, tucked between a plastic surgery office and a luxury apartment building, the kind of place that didn't advertise and didn't ask questions as long as the money was good. Jessica parked 2 blocks away and they approached on foot, moving through shadows that felt somehow thicker here, more watchful. Stay close, Jessica murmured. Let me do the talking. Sarah could see them now, the men positioned around the building's entrance. Park's people on the left, identifiable by the subtle way they deferred to a tall man with a scar running down his jaw. The jade serpent on the right, young and hungry-looking, hands never far from their weapons. In the middle, a narrow path that felt like a minefield. This is insane, Sarah whispered. We're just going to walk through them? They're not here to fight. Not yet. Right now, this is a waiting game. Everyone wants to see if Park survives the night. Jessica straightened her jacket, adopting a confident stride. Just follow my lead and don't look scared. I am scared. Then lie better. They walked toward the entrance, and Sarah felt every eye turn toward them. The scarred man, Park's second-in-command, Min-jun Choi, stepped forward, his hand raised in a gesture that was somehow both welcoming and warning. Ms. Chen, he said in careful English. You should not be here. Park asked for us, Jessica replied. Are you going to deny a dying man's request? Min-jun's jaw tightened. His eyes slid to Sarah, assessing her with the kind of thoroughness that made her skin crawl. This is the woman from the alley. It wasn't a question. Yes, Sarah said, finding her voice. I'm Sarah Brown. I have his children. They're safe. Something flickered across Min-jun's face, relief, maybe, or calculation. Where? That's between me and Park, Sarah said, surprised by her own firmness. He trusted me with them. I'll tell him when I see him. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Min-jun stepped aside. 5 minutes. That is all he can manage. The doctor says more will kill him. They entered the clinic, moving through a sterile hallway that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Park's men flanked them, silent and watchful. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd never been this close to violence before, never felt the weight of so many people capable of killing without hesitation. The room they entered was small, dimly lit, filled with the beep of monitors and the hiss of oxygen. And in the bed, looking nothing like the powerful man she'd expected, was Jae-ho Park. He was younger than she'd imagined, maybe late 30s, handsome in a sharp way that even blood loss and surgery couldn't erase. His skin was pale, his breathing labored, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that were probably the only reason he was still alive. But his eyes were alert when they found her, and she saw that same calculating intelligence that had unsettled her in the alley. Leave us, he said in Korean, his voice barely above a whisper. Min-jun started to protest, but Park cut him off with a look. Within seconds, the room emptied except for Sarah, Jessica, and the ghost king of Seoul. You came, Park said in English, each word clearly costing him. I was not certain you would. You didn't give me much choice, Sarah replied. You put my information in your phone. You knew I'd find you. This was all planned, wasn't it? A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Planned is generous. Anticipated, perhaps. I knew the jade serpent would make a move. I knew it would be when I was most vulnerable. I needed someone who could take my children. Someone unexpected. Someone they would underestimate. Why me? Park's gaze intensified, and Sarah felt like he was looking straight through her. Because 6 months ago, I watched you stop your scooter in the rain to help an old woman who had fallen. You were late for a delivery. You lost money. But you stopped anyway. You carried her groceries up 4 flights of stairs. You did not ask for thanks or payment. You simply helped because it was right. Sarah's breath caught. She remembered that night. The ajama with the heavy bags, the way rain had soaked through Sarah's jacket. She'd been so worried about the delivery penalty that she'd almost driven past. You were watching me? I watch many people. Most disappoint me. You did not. Park coughed, and blood flecked his lips. Jessica moved forward, but he waved her away. I needed someone with a good heart. Someone who would not abandon helpless children even when it was dangerous. Even when it was inconvenient. Even when every logical choice said to run. That doesn't explain why you had all my information. My schedule. My routes. Insurance, Park said. In my world, trust is earned and verified. I needed to know you were who you appeared to be. No criminal connections. No debts to my enemies. No complications that would compromise my children's safety. He paused, struggling for breath. I was right. You saved them. You did not hesitate. People are trying to kill me now, Sarah said, anger bleeding into her voice. I can't go home. I can't go to work. I'm hiding in a safe house with your children, and I don't even know their names. Juneseo and Minho, Park said softly. Juneseo has a birthmark near his left ear. Minho has his mother's stubborn cowlick. His expression cracked, showing grief underneath. Their mother died giving birth to them. I swore I would protect them. Give them a better life than I had. But my enemies see only leverage. Weakness to exploit. Sarah felt her anger wavering in the face of his raw grief, but she forced herself to hold firm. So what happens now? You recover and I just hand them back? Pretend none of this happened? No, Park said, and the word hung heavy in the air. Because the traitor in my organization knows about you now. Knows you have my children. And even if I eliminate the Jade Serpent threat, even if I root out the betrayer, there will always be another enemy. Another attempt. My children will never be safe in my world. Then get out, Sarah said. Leave the life. Take your son somewhere safe. Park's laugh was bitter, ending in a cough that made the monitor spike. There is no leaving. Not for me. I was born into this. My father was Yakuza. My mother was Korean. I belong to neither world and both. The only exit for me is death, and I have been walking toward it my entire life. That's fatalistic bullshit, Sarah snapped. You're choosing this. And you are naive, Park replied, but there was no heat in it. But perhaps that is why you were perfect for this. You still believe people can change. That choices matter. That good hearts can win. He met her eyes. I am going to ask you something now. Something I have no right to ask. Something that will change your life forever. Sarah's mouth went dry. What? Take them. Take Juneseo and Minho. Leave Korea. Return to America. Raise them as your own. The room spun. Sarah gripped the edge of the bed to steady herself. You can't be serious. I have never been more serious about anything in my life. Park's voice gained strength, desperate and urgent. I have money. Accounts that cannot be traced. Identity papers already prepared. You would have everything you need. A house. A good life. Safety. You're asking me to steal your children. I am asking you to save them. There is a difference. Jessica stepped forward. Park, this is insane. You're not thinking clearly. The drugs, the trauma. My mind has never been clearer, Park interrupted. I have spent every day since they were born knowing I would have to make this choice. Knowing I could not keep them and keep them alive. I thought perhaps I had more time. That I could build enough power, enough fear, to make them untouchable. But tonight proved I was wrong. He looked back at Sarah. You are their best chance. Their only chance. I'm 26 years old, Sarah said, her voice shaking. I'm broke. I live in a tiny apartment. I can barely take care of myself. I don't know anything about raising kids, let alone babies, let alone, she stopped, overwhelmed. This is crazy. You're crazy. Yes, Park agreed. But I am also dying. I have perhaps a week before infection takes me. Perhaps less. The bullet fragmented near my spine. Even if I survive the surgery, I will not survive what comes after. My enemies will see weakness. They will strike. And my children will be caught in the crossfire. Then your people protect them. Minjun, the others. Minjun is loyal to me, not to infant heirs. The moment I die, my organization fractures. Some will fight to protect the boys. Others will see them as threats to their own ambitions. In the chaos, my children die. That is not speculation. That is certainty. Sarah turned to Jessica. Tell him this is impossible. Tell him I can't do this. Jessica's expression was conflicted. Legally, it's complicated. Morally, it's complicated. Practically. She sighed. Park's not wrong about the danger. Those babies have a target on their backs that won't disappear when he dies. It might actually get worse. So you think I should do this? Kidnap 2 babies and flee the country? I think you're the only person in this room who actually has a choice, Jessica said quietly. Park's dying. The babies can't choose. I'm just someone trying to minimize casualties. But you? You can walk away. Go back to teaching English. Pretend this night never happened. No one would blame you. Sarah looked at Park, really looked at him. Saw the desperation in his eyes. The love. The terror of a father who knew he was running out of time to save his children. If I do this, Sarah said slowly, if I even consider this insanity, I need answers. Real answers. Who's the traitor? How do I get out of Korea without being caught? How do I know the Jade Serpent won't track me down in America? The traitor is someone close, Park said. Someone I trusted. I have narrowed it to 3 people. Before I die, I will find them. Eliminate them. Cut off that thread so it cannot follow you. That's not comforting. It is the best I can offer. As for leaving Korea, Jessica can help with that. She has contacts. Resources that even my enemies cannot reach. Sarah turned to Jessica. Is that true? I can get you out, Jessica confirmed. It won't be easy, and it won't be legal, but I can do it. The question is whether you're willing to become someone else. New identity. New history. New everything. I'd lose my whole life. You'd gain 2 lives in return, Park said. Is that not a fair trade? Sarah thought about her mother in Detroit, struggling with medical bills that Sarah could barely help with. Thought about her tiny apartment and her delivery job and the visa that was already expired. Thought about the life she'd been clinging to, barely surviving, always one bad month away from disaster. Then she thought about Jun Seo and Minho, sleeping peacefully in a safe house, unaware that their father was dying and their future hung on the decision of a stranger. I need time, Sarah said finally. I can't decide this in 5 minutes while you're bleeding out in a clinic bed. Time is the one thing I cannot give you, Park said, his voice weakening. The Jade Serpent will not wait. My traitor will not wait. Every hour you remain in Korea increases the danger. Then give me until morning. Let me think. Let me figure out if I can actually do this without getting those babies killed. Park studied her for a long moment, then nodded fractionally. Morning. But Sarah Brown, he reached out, his hand finding hers with surprising strength. Know this. I do not ask lightly. I do not trust easily. But I have watched you for months. I know your heart. And I know my sons will be loved if they are with you. That is worth more than money. More than power. More than anything I could give them in my world. Sarah pulled her hand away, her emotions too tangled to process. I have to go. I need to see them. I need to think. Jessica guided her out of the room, past Minjun's suspicious glare and the corridor full of men who looked ready to kill at the slightest provocation. They made it back to the car in silence, and Sarah didn't realize she was shaking until Jessica turned on the heat. Are you okay? Jessica asked, pulling into traffic. No. Nothing about this is okay. Sarah pressed her hands to her face. He wants me to take his children. Just take them and run. Like that's a normal thing to ask someone. In his world, it might be the most normal thing he's ever done. Choosing love over power. Sacrifice over pride. Jessica glanced at her. What are you going to do? I don't know. I really don't know. They drove back to the safe house in silence. Dawn was breaking over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that felt obscene given the circumstances. How could the world be beautiful when everything was falling apart? David was awake when they arrived, looking exhausted but relieved. They've been good. Sleeping mostly. Fed them once around 5. Sarah went straight to the portable crib where Jun Seo and Minho slept. Jun Seo with his little mole. Minho with his stubborn cowlick. They looked so peaceful, so innocent, so utterly unaware that their lives hung in the balance. She thought about Park's words. About the old woman in the rain. About the choice she'd made that night to stop and help when it would have been easier to drive past. She'd always believed in doing the right thing, even when it cost her. But this? This was bigger than helping someone carry groceries. This was stealing children. Becoming a fugitive. Erasing her entire identity. This was insane. Sarah's phone buzzed, her cracked phone that somehow still worked. A text from an unknown number, you have something I want. Name your price. Then another, your mother's medical bills are $47,000. I can make them disappear. Another, or I can make your mother disappear. Choose quickly. Sarah's blood turned to ice. They knew about her mother. They were threatening her mother. The Jade Serpent had reached across the ocean to Detroit and wrapped their hands around the only family she had left. She showed the text to Jessica, who swore quietly. They're escalating. This is bad. What do I do? I can't let them hurt my mom. Your mother is in Detroit. They can't touch her that easily. This is psychological warfare. They're trying to force your hand. Well, it's working. Sarah's voice cracked. I came here to help my mom. To send money home so she could afford treatment. And now I've put her in danger. How is that helping? Here's a question for you watching right now. Have you ever been caught between saving someone you love and protecting a stranger? What would you choose if both lives hung in the balance? Drop your answer in the comments because Sarah's about to make a choice that will haunt her forever. And if you're as hooked on this story as I think you are, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. David looked up from his laptop, his expression grim. There's something else. Park's condition deteriorated 20 minutes ago. He's back in surgery. The doctors don't think he'll make it through the day. Sarah felt the walls closing in. If Park died, what happened to his promise to find the traitor? What happened to the protection he'd offered? What happened to Jun Seo and Minho? She looked at the babies again, and suddenly she saw them differently. Not as Park's children or as problems to solve, but as two tiny humans who didn't ask to be born into violence. Who didn't choose their father's life or their mother's death. Who deserved a chance at something better. Sarah thought about her own mother, working 3 jobs to raise her alone after her father left. Never complaining. Never giving up. Always choosing love even when everything else fell apart. What would her mother do in this situation? Sarah already knew the answer. Her mother would choose the children. Every single time. Okay, Sarah said quietly. I'll do it. I'll take them. Jessica and David exchanged glances. Are you sure? Jessica asked. No. But I don't think I'm supposed to be sure about something like this. I just know that if I walk away, if I let those babies go back into that world, they'll die. And I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I could have saved them and didn't. Sarah wiped her eyes. So tell me what I need to do. How do we get out of Korea? Jessica pulled out her phone, already dialing. We move fast. Today. Before the Jade Serpent realizes what we're planning. Before Park's organization collapses. We have a window of maybe 12 hours. Where do we go? There's a cargo ship leaving Busan tonight. Private vessel. Captain owes me a favor. He can get you to Japan, then we arrange a flight from Tokyo to LAX. Different name. Different papers. Different life. What about my mom? They threatened her. I'll make calls. Get protection on her. Make it clear that touching her means bringing down heat they don't want. Jessica's expression was fierce. You save these kids, Sarah. I'll handle the rest. Sarah picked up Jun Seo, feeling his warm weight settle against her shoulder. Minho stirred in the crib, and she picked him up too, holding both babies close. Holding both babies felt different now. Not like borrowed weight but like something that belonged to her. Like a choice she'd made that was already changing who she was. Jun Seo made a small sound against her neck, and Minho's tiny fist grabbed her shirt, and Sarah felt the full magnitude of what she was about to do crash over her like a wave. She was going to become a mother. Not by birth or by choice made in calm reflection, but by necessity and desperation and a dying man's plea. She was going to raise 2 boys who would never know their real father. Who would grow up with lies about where they came from and who they were. But they would grow up. They would be alive. And sometimes that was the only choice that mattered. We need to move, David said, packing up his laptop with quick, efficient movements. The Jade Serpent has informants everywhere. The longer we stay in one place, the more danger we're in. Jessica was already on her second phone call, speaking rapid Korean to someone who sounded official and annoyed. She hung up and turned to Sarah. Documents will be ready in 3 hours. We're meeting a forger in Itaewon. Best in the city. He's expensive but fast. I don't have money for expensive, Sarah said. Park does. He wired funds to an account this morning before he went back into surgery. $500,000 USD. It's yours now. For the babies. For starting over. Jessica pulled out a piece of paper with account numbers written in Park's shaky handwriting. He planned for everything except surviving. Sarah stared at the numbers. $500,000. More money than she'd ever imagined having. Enough to pay her mother's medical bills 10 times over. Enough to buy a house, start a real life, give Jun Seo and Minho everything they needed. Blood money. That's what it was. Built on violence and fear and all the things she'd spent her life trying to avoid. But also love money. A father's last act of protection. The only inheritance he could give his sons that might actually keep them alive. Take it, Jessica said, reading her hesitation. Don't let pride kill those babies. Park made his choices. Now you make yours. Sarah folded the paper and put it in her pocket. Another line crossed. Another piece of her old life falling away. They left the safe house 30 minutes later, moving through Seoul's morning rush with calculated randomness. David drove while Jessica kept watch, her hand never far from the gun Sarah now knew she carried. The babies were strapped into car seats that David had somehow procured overnight, dressed in clean clothes that made them look like any other infants being taken to daycare. Except these weren't any other infants. These were the sons of the Ghost King of Seoul, and half the criminal underworld wanted them dead. The forger worked out of a photography studio in Itaewon, the kind of place that did passport photos and family portraits and didn't ask questions about the documents people brought in. He was an older man, Korean-American by his accent, with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much. 3 identities, Jessica said, spreading cash on his desk. American mother, twin sons. Airtight. Documents that will pass government screening. The forger looked at Sarah, then at the babies, then back at Jessica. This is Park's family. It wasn't a question. Does that matter? Jessica asked. It matters because I liked Park. He was fair. Paid well. Didn't threaten my family when things got complicated. The forger picked up the cash, counted it quickly, and nodded. 3 hours. Come back then. And Ms. Brown, he looked directly at Sarah. Whatever name I give you, become that person completely. Don't slip. Don't call yourself Sarah even in your head. The moment you hesitate, the moment you remember who you were, that's when you make mistakes. Sarah swallowed hard. What name will I have? You'll know when you come back. Now leave. I work better alone. They spent the next 3 hours in a coffee shop 6 blocks away, pretending to be normal people drinking overpriced lattes while their entire futures were being forged in a studio above a convenience store. Sarah tried to feed the babies, change them, keep them quiet and calm while her own heart raced like it might explode. David's laptop pinged. He checked it and went pale. Park died 15 minutes ago. Heart failure. The clinic just confirmed it. Sarah felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. He's dead? Already? His injuries were too severe. They did everything they could. David showed them the news alert already spreading across Korean social media. The Ghost King had fallen. Seoul's underworld was about to erupt. Jessica's phone started ringing. She looked at the caller ID and answered. Minjun. I'm sorry for your loss. Sarah could hear shouting on the other end. Angry Korean that needed no translation. Minjun had just lost his boss, and he wanted Park's children. He wanted them now. That's not possible, Jessica said calmly. The woman and the children are already gone. Park's wishes were clear. He wanted them safe, and that means far from Seoul. More shouting. Threats, probably. Promises of violence. If you want to honor Park's memory, Jessica said, her voice hard now, you'll help us disappear. You'll tell the Jade Serpent the children died with him. You'll give us the time we need to get out of this country. That's what he would have wanted. Silence on the other end. Then a few words, quieter now. Jessica hung up. We have 6 hours. Minjun will spread word that the babies were killed in the attack. Give us a head start. After that, he can't control what his people do. The organization is fracturing already. What happens in Seoul when we're gone? Sarah asked. War, probably. Power vacuum. Violence. Jessica's expression was grim. But that's not your problem anymore. Your problem is getting these boys to safety and keeping them there. The forger handed Sarah a manila envelope 3 hours later. Inside were 3 passports, 3 birth certificates, social security cards, and a California driver's license. Sarah opened the passport and saw her own face staring back at her, but the name underneath read, Maya Johnson. Maya Johnson, age 28, born in Oakland, California, the forger recited. Single mother of twins, June and Miho Johnson. Your boys were born in LA County Hospital. You're a teacher looking to relocate. Your story is boring and forgettable, which makes it perfect. Jun and Miho. Not Junesio and Minho. American names. American lives. American futures built on Korean blood and loss. Memorize everything in that envelope before you board the ship, the forger continued. Your address in Oakland. Your mother's name, different from your real mother. Your employment history. Everything. Burn the papers when you're done, but keep the memories. Sarah, no, Maya now, nodded numbly. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep those boys alive. Park deserved that much. They left quickly, David driving them toward Busan while Jessica monitored police channels and underworld chatter. The city was already reacting to Park's death. News of gang violence erupting in Gangnam. Territories being contested. The Mafia boss's empire crumbling before his body was even cold. Min-jun is doing his best, Jessica said, scrolling through encrypted messages. But he's fighting 5 different factions who all think they should take over. The chaos is actually helping us. Everyone's too busy fighting each other to chase down rumors about the children. Will he survive? Maya asked, still catching herself thinking of Sarah. Min-jun? Probably. He's smart. Ruthless when he needs to be. But loyal in his own way. Park chose his people well. They drove for 3 hours, stopping only once for gas and supplies. The babies slept most of the way, exhausted from the constant movement and strange faces. Maya held them close, memorizing their weight, their smell, the way Jun's breathing whistled slightly and Miho's left eyebrow quirked up when he dreamed. These were her sons now. Not biologically. Not legally, not really. But in every way that mattered. Busan port appeared on the horizon as sunset turned the sky orange and purple. David navigated through industrial areas until they reached a section where cargo ships loomed like metal mountains against the darkening sky. He pulled up to a rust-streaked vessel called the Morning Star, its hull scarred from years of Pacific crossings. Captain will have you in Tokyo by Friday, David said. Jessica's contact there will get you on a commercial flight to LAX. After that, you're on your own. On my own with $500,000 and 2 babies I didn't give birth to, Maya said. The enormity of it was finally sinking in. What could possibly go wrong? Jessica actually smiled. You're going to be fine. You stopped in that alley. You didn't run when any sane person would have. You made the hard choice over and over tonight. That's what being a mother is, making impossible choices and living with them. You sound like you know something about that. Different story. Different ending. Jessica handed Maya a phone, new, untraceable, with only 2 numbers programmed in. The first number is mine. Emergency only. The second is a lawyer in Los Angeles who specializes in identity documentation. He'll help you establish residency, get the boys into the system properly. Park set it all up months ago. He really did plan for everything. Everything except living. Jessica's expression softened. Take care of his boys, Maya. Give him the life he couldn't. Maya gathered the babies and the single bag of supplies they'd packed. Everything else, her apartment, her belongings, her entire life as Sarah Brown, was already gone. Erased. A mafia boss in Seoul's foreign quarter that no one would remember. She walked up the gangplank, feeling the ship shift under her feet. The captain was waiting, a weathered Filipino man who nodded once and gestured toward a cabin below deck. He didn't ask questions. Didn't look at the babies too closely. Just pointed the way and disappeared back to the bridge. The cabin was small but clean. A bed bolted to the floor, a tiny bathroom, a porthole showing the last light fading from Busan's skyline. Maya laid Jun and Miho on the bed, building a barrier of pillows to keep them from rolling off. The ship's engines rumbled to life. She felt the vessel pulling away from the dock, away from Korea, away from everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Maya Johnson stood at the porthole and watched Seoul's lights disappear into the distance. Somewhere in that city, Park's body was being prepared for burial. His organization was tearing itself apart. The Jade Serpent was claiming victory. And Sarah Brown had vanished as completely as if she'd never existed. But Maya Johnson was real. Maya Johnson had 2 sons who needed her. Maya Johnson had a future that was terrifying and uncertain and absolutely nothing like what she'd planned. Jun started crying, and Maya picked him up, rocking him gently. Miho stirred, reaching for her with tiny hands. She gathered them both close, these children who were hers now through blood and choice and a dying man's desperate love. I've got you, she whispered. I've got you both. I promise. The morning star cut through dark water toward Japan, toward America, toward whatever came next. And Maya Johnson, formerly Sarah Brown, delivery driver and English teacher, held her sons and tried not to think about the fact that she'd just stepped into a shadow that might never let her back into the light. But shadows protected too. Shadows hid. And sometimes, shadows were exactly what kept you alive. So what would you do? If you found a dying stranger holding two innocent babies, would you run? Would you stay? Would you sacrifice everything you knew for two lives you just met? Drop your answer in the comments below. I want to know if you'd make the same impossible choice Maya did. And if this story kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about right and wrong, about sacrifice and survival, about the choices we make when there are no good options left. Because Maya's story? It's just beginning. And trust me, you're going to want to see what happens when the mafia boss's sons grow up not knowing who their father really was. Until next time.